Welcome to another episode of Borderless Diaries, the podcast where we are going to discuss everything about living your life abroad, what we've learned, the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Today, I'm joined by somebody that I've known since high school. His name is Jua Dai, and there is one night I will never forget about him. We were all out with friends, and he told his amazing, incredible story or wish, I guess, about the reincarnation into a Siberian snow leopard. And that curiosity and that sense of wonder is pretty much how I remember Jua Dai. Since then, his journey took him all the way to Uganda, where he spent 10 years before returning to the Netherlands. His ambition in and the passion that he has never left him. He still works deeply into the sustainability. And I want to explore how he found his way to Uganda, what those years taught him, and what we can learn about the way that he looks at the world. And I'm very curious about his story. Judah, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the Borderless Diaries, the podcast where we share stories across borders without filters. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Good. So, Judah, every guest starts with the same question. What is one of the most unforgettable, funny, or downright awkward experience you've had while adjusting to a new country?
Very good question. I think I had many. When in Uganda, well, I was in Uganda for quite a long time, for like 10 years. And one occasion we had to visit a king, the king of the tribe around our farm,
Yeah.
and he was coronated. So he had a few guests. He had a chief, and chief from another ethnic group. Tribes we can't say anymore. That's not woke. But ethnic group, and we were invited to come and show our respects and share some presents. Well, in the morning, I thought, let me put on some minimal celebrative clothing. So I
Sure.
had I put on my Rolling Stone socks. So I always put my Rolling Stone socks on when there's something to celebrate. So we came to his residential place, and we were invited in to sit in the room with him and the other chiefs. But we had to put our shoes off. So, and we had to sit down against the wall on the floor. It was also a bit awkward, but I thought, okay, customs, not my thing. But there I was seated together with my colleagues, and I had my Rolling Stones socks on. And you know, the Rolling Stones sign with the mouth and the tongue. And they were constantly looking at me while I'm talking, and then to my socks, and then me and my socks. So felt very awkward.
Yeah,
That was one, I think, one of them.
yeah. And did they ever make a said anything about the socks, or did everybody just kept on looking at your socks and just ignored it?
No, it's a sign of respect not to mention anything awkward. I mean, there's a lot of official things in Uganda, awkward things happen, and people just keep like a straight face and don't bother with it.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
Well, that is indeed one of an awkward but yet funny story to begin with.
yeah.
So, Drew and I, we've been to high school together, and after that, I think I've not really spoken or seen you for several years. So, take me a little bit back after high school. Your journey went and led you to Uganda. How did you first come to Uganda? How did that kind of float into your life, and what was the decision to move and to actually go to Uganda?
Well, when I was young, I always had a weak spot for Africa. My parents stayed there for quite a long time when they were young, my age now. And I was I was born in the Netherlands, but quickly after I was born, my mother and my father took me to Rwanda. So we stayed for a while in Rwanda, and unfortunately, we had to leave Rwanda because of the genocide back then. But well, Africa has always kept a special place in my heart. So I always wanted to go back. I always read about it. I always listened to the stories of my parents, listened to African music, though Africa is very big, but some specific music from the region where my parents stayed. And this was also one of the reasons why I chose my bachelor's, sociology or rural sociology, basically. And as soon as I was able to go to Africa, I did. So around my internship and my thesis, I had the chance to go to Uganda. My father already had a project there together with a friend of his, and it was close to the Congo border in Uganda, and there was a perfect opportunity for me to go there and do my internship, be there, live there, and see how things would be for me
Yeah.
in my conscience life.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. That's quite well, it's kind of good as well, but you've kind of had the whole African background from your parents and being brought up into
Yeah.
that culture as well. So when you first arrived there during your internship, what was those first months look like? What were kind of the surprises or maybe things that surprised you moving there?
I think what struck me was the feeling of trying to be myself. It was quite difficult to start and express yourselves. You don't really know what kind of humor people have, and you don't know how people perceive you. You also have a white skin, so in a white skin in a very homogene
Yeah.
skin varieties in Uganda.
Yeah.
So it was quite difficult to express yourself or feel a certain way when everyone looked differently and looked quite at you because you stood out. So that was one of the first things that I felt was quite difficult because I always imagined being there in Africa, but I never imagined that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
That
also
was one of the
you
things.
need to get used to as well, and they need to get used to it. It's a whole different
Yeah.
culture, a whole different country. Did it take you a long time to adjust yourself in Uganda?
Yeah, it was. Well, what is long? I mean, when it happened, it felt long, and I think you always, up to the last day you're in Uganda, you always adjust yourself to
Yes.
some extent because you know that you are always slightly different. And it will be the same thing when they would come here in the Netherlands and start to live here. They would always stand out some more or less. So you will always adjust yourself to a certain extent. But the more and more feedback you get, the more and more you feel comfortable with who you are in a certain setting, in different situations with, yeah, and get friends and get to know people, then you become more and more at ease and you understand what you can do and what you can't do. And eventually I became very good at it
Yeah.
in adjusting,
Yeah.
relaxing, being in the moment. So yeah, that I think that takes a while
Yeah.
up to the last moment, I think.
Yeah. I can imagine there. Was there then a specific moment for you where you felt like this is where I'm meant to be in this day and age?
Yeah, I think there were many of those moments. I mean, I've stayed in Uganda for almost 10 years, so there were many moments that I felt like, yes, I'm where I need to be.
Yeah.
And a simple moment is when you have your coffee on the veranda overlooking a beautiful garden with all birds and plants and see your cat trying to hunt a lizard, and then you're sitting there starting your day, and then man, that is one of the most happy. That was one of the most happy moments, and there were also many cup of coffees in those mornings. But also going alone into one of the nature reserves or national parks with the car, and it was also scary. It was not as nice as when you are doing that with friends or family or whatsoever, but it was something that you I wanted to do for myself, and that was one of those moments that I thought that yes, I'm where I need to be.
Yeah, I can imagine because you'll learn so much as well. And from an early age, from what you told us, kind of hearing the stories and then live that story basically yourself, I can imagine that's quite significant.
Yeah.
Um, Then 10 years later, basically, there's a whole chapter in Uganda, and then you move back to the Netherlands. How did that transition look like for you?
Well, it was interesting because we went to the Netherlands in a very short notice. So we were in Uganda, and well, we were already um, thinking of going to the Netherlands or thinking of going somewhere else. We stayed there in Uganda for and I say we, there was me and my girlfriend partner, and but she got a job offer suddenly in the Netherlands. She applied, she was searching, but she got one which was, she didn't expect it to be that soon. So within a few months, we had to decide, are we going back to the Netherlands? Are we going to leave behind our place, our house there and move to the Netherlands? And in the Netherlands, where are we going to live? We don't have a house, we don't have a place to stay. We didn't want to necessarily stay at our parents' place because we wanted to be together. So that transition, and it was also at the end of the year. So it was around this time, September, October. And luckily, we had a few days of nice weather, but quite soon after, the weather became very Dutch autumn weather like this, what we have now. And that was really difficult to adjust to.
Yeah, I can imagine. You went from the sunshine, a lot of, like, going outside, and then the rainy, cloudy
Yes.
Netherlands winter. Oh, yeah, I can imagine that. So, if you compare your daily life back in Uganda and your daily life when you had to transition back to the Netherlands, how would you compare it? Like, paint a picture for me how that life looked like in Uganda compared to maybe a daily normal life in the Netherlands.
First of all, you wake up with the light. So with the daylight, you wake up around 7, then it becomes light. Well, then the goats and the chicken and everyone starts to make noise. So you get awake because of the noise and the light. It's not that romantic because there's also noise. But then you have your cup of coffee, you start the day. We lived next to, or actually annexed to, our office. So it was quite easy for us. We could just have our breakfast, have our coffee, and then after that, we didn't need to travel somewhere else. No, just around the corner, we had our office. So that was quite pleasant. And from there, we had office work to do, but when we had to go to the farm, we moved to the farm, and that would take like 1.5 hour on a dirt road and really through the countryside, very really through the hills. And when it had rained, the road was very bad. So it took 2 hours, depend.
Yeah.
Um, and then you arrive at the farm. Well, we had a guest house there, so we could relax a bit, have some food, have some lunch, and then we went into the fields, to the big field, to the farm, see how things were going, how people were doing, and then back at the end of the day, go back to the guest house. The nice thing about that guest house is that it was really in a village. So you looked out a window and you were looking at on a homestead of a family. So you were seeing people cooking and arguing and playing around there on their homestead like they didn't know you were there. So it was quite interesting. And yeah, it was really beautiful. You really lived by the moment. You didn't think a lot about what would come next or what has happened or such. You were always busy.
I can imagine that, like, living more in the present moment and enjoying life instead of, I mean, I'm from the Netherlands as well, as you know, but I think compared to the Netherlands, it's almost like that routine. And I think if you would see somebody arguing in your neighbor's like garden or whatever little yard, you will be kind of an intruder looking at them to be like, "Oh, they're arguing."
Yeah.
Instead of, like, maybe in Uganda where life just happens and you're present in that moment. Is that Are those moments that you carry with you? Has that shaped you as a person in Uganda, I think?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think so. You really learn to not think or not worry too much about what will what will I think a lot has shaped me. It's difficult to say or pinpoint one particular thing that has shaped me, but the most important thing is that what shaped me was that I just did what I really liked to do and that I really felt confident doing that. I also received a lot of confidence. I received a lot of trust from my parents, from my friends. They knew what I was doing to some extent. I mean, those who visited really knew what I was doing. But I think what I learned is that if you really want to do something, or if you believe in something, and it sounds very cheesy, but if you can imagine it, if you can really imagine it and you just go for it, of course, not at all costs. I mean, you do it together with people. You will be alone, but you will eventually do it together with people. Then you are really able to realize those dreams and the things you have imagined. And I think that is the main lesson I learned is that you just need to be confident in that you are doing the right thing towards that dream.
Yeah, I think that's very beautiful. In what ways then did that change how you see yourself and your place in the world?
Think it did. I think it makes me realize that I'm very lucky. And when you look at people in Uganda, what they have, or better said, what they don't have,
Hmm.
you realize how lucky you are and that I'm coming from a good family with a lot of love, with a lot of care, with a lot of trust, always supportive, and that this is something even in the Netherlands it's not a given.
Yeah.
So I've always been very grateful having that and having experienced that as well. And knowing that not everyone had such a youth, has such a support behind him or her. So that makes you also more compassionate.
Yeah.
In Dutch, we say empathisch. I don't know. Yeah, I think that is compassionate in English. So having that, realizing that, seeing all kind of people with all kind of backgrounds, with all kind of struggles, a lot of struggles, then you really start to understand, okay, what can I offer? What can I do? What can I not do? Should I not do? And how to be a fellow being, but not because of them, but with them,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense because I know that you've always had a lot of compassion and a lot of passion towards helping the world. And in today's day and age, you have been working in sustainability. How did Uganda then shape the way you think about that impact? You've seen that firsthand, what impact can look like, I can imagine, but within impacting the people and the planet and practical solutions, how did that time in Uganda shape that thinking process for you?
Yeah, I think the first thing what I want to stress in going to Uganda, and I learned that quite soon when I arrived in Uganda, is that you should not go there to help. You should go there because you want to be there and you want to be with the people and you want to be there, live there at you like it there. You know, you can be happy there, even if it is only for a short period.
Mhm.
So with that said, it is important that having an impact is again something you do together over a certain period of time. It is not you alone who's doing that, or you and your Dutch team. No, you do that together with the people around you. And it's also important that you realize that impact is taking a lot of time.
Yeah.
You don't have impacts where within a few days, within a few weeks, not even a few years. You really need to take a lot of time to have an impact. And then it also depends impact on what, on the environment, on people. You need to combine it all. If you want to have an impact, you can't only solely focus on one aspect, on the well health of people. You also need to create a better living condition, a better working condition. You need to do something about the environment, about the food they eat. You want to, you can think very big, And I think a lot of people who are in development assistance, how we say that, have thought about that, have cracked their brains on it. It's really, yeah, you need to take a lot of time to realize impact and the patience. You need to have a lot of patience. A lot of things are happening which you don't think that are done well, or people are not doing what you want. It's really,
Yeah.
I had so many times like that I thought like, what am I doing here? But yeah, it's all a bit abstract, but I think I think the more you get to know each other, the more you get to know the people around you. And in my case, particularly in Uganda and DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, there are so many differences, but there are also a lot of things that you share. At least you can already talk to each other, so you can share already a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. I think I really like the way that you framed the don't go there just to, well, not just to, but to help. I think that is kind of a coming in with that mindset of I'm doing it better than the other person.
yeah,
I think that that is indeed something that we all need to learn a little bit, that we are not coming in to be that hero, but that we do things together to have a better impact around us, and what your place in the world is to help achieve that, I think. What's something that you've learned in Uganda that you wish more people would understand?
that's a very good question. I think what I see with a lot of people in Uganda, people like me, expats, is that when they are in Uganda and they are there for a few years, the shorter they are there, the worse it gets, is that they think they know everything about Uganda.
Yeah.
And they know everything about what the people think, what the people want, what is happening around them. It's incredible,
Yeah.
especially those who are living in the capital city. So what I want to emphasize is that the more you, and again, that also sounds cheesy, but the more you get to know a country or the people around you or the circumstances around you, the more you realize that you know very little
Yeah.
and you understand very little. But more and more, that is also to be given, but still very little, and you can't speak for the people themselves because you will never be the same. You will never be exactly on their shoes because first of all, you look different. Secondly, you have a totally different childhood, a totally different world you grew up with, so you will never fully understand.
Yeah. No, I think that that is very humbling experience, I think. And I think it comes back a little bit what you said earlier as well. Like it's the mindset, how you come into a place and a circumstance or the situation. And especially if the differences between the countries is so big where you can actually see the cultural differences. And I think, we've grown up with a lot of, availability to television or news, etc., but that only portrays one point of view. And I think it's a humbling experience living through all of that.
Yeah.
Now that you're back in the Netherlands, do you feel that you're fully back home, or are you still living between those worlds?
Yeah, I think I've always been, even before I went to Uganda, I already felt like I was living between two worlds. Um, and now it's worse. I mean, now I lived in Uganda for quite a long time, and now I'm back in the Netherlands. But it's a curse and it's a luxury. I mean, to start with the luxury, you have two homes. You have two places where you can call home, and that is a very beautiful thing to have, that you feel, yeah, that I feel home in Uganda. And there was a lot of beautiful things, a lot of beautiful people, a lot of things I really enjoyed. And when I'm going back to the Netherlands, there are also a lot of people I missed for a long time, so family and friends who couldn't come over, for example. And it's also good to see them. And my parents are also becoming older, becoming less mobile. It's also good to be there with them. Yeah. The,
Yeah.
the 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 bad thing about Uganda is that you are away from friends and family for a long time. We didn't have a lot of social interactions. in the city we stayed in. I don't know whether you call it the city, especially not in United States terms. It was quite small. You can call it a town, and there was no cinema. There were bars, not bars, not some restaurants, but there was no cinema. And what else do you have? No jeu de boelbaan. I don't know how do you say that. How do you say that in
But yeah,
in
it's
English?
shareable.
Yeah,
Look it up.
yeah, something like that. And we only had recently we had like a artificial grass football pitch. So things I'm developing, but a lot of things I miss. So in the Netherlands, what I don't like here in the Netherlands is mainly the weather and of course the rushing and the rhythm and sitting inside a lot.
How do you
Yeah.
still carry Uganda with you in your daily life then?
Well, one thing is that our cat comes from Uganda, so she we took her with us when we left. So that is already one thing. Secondly is I think you will always, especially after such a long time in Uganda, you will get used to not rush too much and also let things go if things are not convenient when you are in a big queue in front of I don't know where in the supermarket or whatsoever. You think like, oh, okay, let me just relax a bit. I can't go anywhere. You can way better take your moments of
Yeah,
peace and silence and being in the moment.
yeah.
And that I think, yeah, I think that you take with you every day. And of course, all the memories. I think about Uganda every day. I mean,
Yeah. That's really good. And I think I admire that a little bit in you because I have the worst patience, I think, ever. Trying to learn to just be and let it go
yeah,
and not control everything around me, which is a learning process, people. It's truly a learning process. I will take that little advice from you and
you can go,
for Uganda.
exactly, you can go for a crash course to Uganda.
Well, and there's one thing that I really wanted to ask you, Jua Dai, because I know many years ago we talked about a snow leopard. And that question has been burning on my tongue for the past 30 minutes. Do you still wish to be reincarnated into a snow leopard? And I think you
No,
I was no. I was like, yes, he's gonna say yes.
I wanted to surprise you a bit, but after a lot of thinking, I also don't want to. I mean, a snow leopard is a beautiful, majestic animal, beautiful to see in a very beautiful environment, but it seems so lonely
Yeah.
up there in the mountains and cold. I also really don't like coldness. Of course, it has a very nice warm fur, but I rather be a bird or something, or like I was thinking of a swift,
Oh.
bit high up in the air, and then you migrate to Africa sometimes, nice and warm. It's also a little bit something what I do.
That's true. So I think you channeled your new inner animal, I guess, the
Yeah,
reincarnated.
my spirit animal.
All right, Jodan, we're getting into the final part of the podcast, and we always wrap up with a little bit of a quick fire. So I will ask you two questions, and then we're gonna wrap up. What is one thing that you miss the most about Uganda?
What I miss the most in Uganda is, can I say multiple things? Okay, one is the nice weather and predictable weather. Two is the beautiful landscape. It's just beautiful, and it's really Africa, Lion King colors. A lot of Lion King colors. The people, I really miss the people, laid back, of course, hardworking, but not so much thinking about the whole kind of political issues and first world issues as we have here in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I can imagine that. All right, and then what do you now love the most about being back in the Netherlands?
I already mentioned that I really like to be back in the Netherlands because of my family and friends. It has been a very long time since I can just plan for the weekend or plan 2 weeks in advance and be in the Netherlands and enjoy their presence, being with them, doing something spontaneously. So that is something I really missed, and I think that is what I'm like most. Second is the abundance of food things in the
Yeah.
supermarkets.
I was curious if you were gonna say something like a bitter bala or the snack bar or something like that.
Yeah, I also really missed croquettes
Yeah.
in the Netherlands, and I really, it's not that I eat them every day, but I ate them this weekend. So
Yeah, just a teeny tiny bit of jealousy, especially now that I'm talking to everybody and each in their own countries, but some of us are Dutch. And I think every podcast so far has been, I miss bitterballen or I miss the snack bar or something like that.
yeah,
Okay, so the last and final question is if you could leave one piece of advice for somebody that is chasing their dreams, what would you tell them?
I would say just do it. It sounds dumb, but it's a step you need to really take, and don't think about it too long. Just do it. Push everything aside. Just go for it.
Yes.
And when you are going abroad, be ready to be lonely. Be
Yeah.
ready to be lonely for a while. Be ready to be alone and not knowing anyone for a while. But also put your boundaries and say that, okay, I'm going to be lonely for
Yeah.
X amount of time. And then if it is surpassing that, then you go and move on. I mean, you should not become totally depressed for where you are. You need to keep enjoying where you are.
Yeah, I think that is very good advice because I think a lot of people forget the part that they go through a little bit of uncomfortableness to get to a place where you want to be. And pushing through that, I think, shapes you, but also you
Yeah.
learn so much about yourself and what makes you happy, what gives you energy. So I think that that is very good advice for the people that are listening in today.
Yeah.
Jua Dai, we are at the wrap up. I really want to thank you for so much for our conversation. I think it's really admirable to see you grown so much as well. I mean, we've talked to each other maybe 20 years ago when we were in high school together. Well, 20 years is a little bit of an exaggeration, but 15 years later, from snow leopards now to a zwaluw, whatever the English bird is called.
Swift.
As
It's a
sweet.
Swift.
So I really want to thank you also for your advice and sharing your story with us today. So thank you all for joining the Borderless Diaries, the podcast. And you and I, we will talk to you another day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.